He's clumsy, he's simple, he's smarter than you think. Goofy is one of the, goofiest characters in cartoondom. His original voice actor was Pinto Colvig, who we covered in this video. But when Disney wanted to bring the Goof back to the limelight after 20 years without a consistent voice artist, who could step up to this big task? Let's find out. Before we start, don't forget to check out our Discord, our coffee page, and like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell, all the things. It really helps us out. Bill was born in Pratt, Kansas, no affiliation, on November 14th, 1952. And like most of the people we cover on this channel, he found a passion for his craft at a young age. So mark another tally for young age talent in your book there, Discography fans.
Ever since I was a little kid, I was enamored with cartoons and the movies. I grew up in a small town in Kansas, and so there wasn't a whole lot to do. So Saturday morning, it was cartoon time. And so, and I found that I had a little facility for doing the voices. I just really loved them.
Things like in those days, gosh, it was Yogi Bear, and I'd run around the house, hey, Boo-Boo, how are you? Hi, Yogi, how are you? Exit, stage left. So I would practice all of the Hanna-Barbera and the Warner Brothers and Disney
one-man show.
And stuff. And I did little plays in my basement, and I would actually play like I had a tape recorder before I had a real tape recorder. And even back then, I would try and do the, like the CBS Evening News, and I would make up little news stories. And like, we're reporting on a big fire, and I would take some foil and listen back. That sounds cool.
At 15, 16, I found out I had an affinity for doing impressions, and I'd, of course, watch, in those days, Westerns were big, and I'd do a John Wayne or Jimmy Stewart. Well, Walter Brennan, some voices like that. Or Pat Buttram, who was one of my favorites. And I would drive through with my friends through places, a burger place, and I'd order, I'd like a big cheeseburger and a large Coke to go. And they'd look out at me, and my friends would laugh. So I got put up in front of everybody, do your John Wayne, do your Jimmy Stewart. And I found out, hey, this is kind of cool.
He became known for his talent and was recruited to appear in pep assemblies every Friday before the football game. The cheerleaders would perform, and then Bill would come out and imitate John Wayne, saying phrases like, "Let's get out there and beat that team." This was his hobby, which in a lot of ways is less scary than mine. At the University of Kansas, his major was broadcast journalism. However, during parties at his Sigma Chi fraternity, his frat brothers would call for him to perform when the band took a break. So he began writing some material and developed a comedy routine. What fun hazing! Probably the best and only acceptable kind, in our opinion. After he graduated in 1975, he eventually got a job at a radio station in Bonham, Texas, north of Dallas, and later moved to another station in Frederick, Oklahoma, which was owned by the same man.
I would be doing these little podunk stations in Oklahoma and Kansas and stuff, and they didn't care what we did, so I'd just bring in Wolfman. Hey, Bill, what's going on? We're going to be playing Stacks of Wax all day long.
That is unbelievable.
Hey, Wolfman, it's great having you. And people think, Wolfman's on our station. I didn't know that.
We got us the Wolfman jacket
or anything, so yeah, it was just kind of a gig, and so I just kind of picked up these weird voices.
Meanwhile, he studied and received a degree in electronics and became a chief engineer. He received a first-class FCC license to work at transmitter and electrical details. Eventually, he moved back to Dallas and earned a technician degree at the Elkins Institute of Technology. I love when we can appease our radio nerd fans. At this point, radio was becoming harder and harder to find a good career in, so he took his technical degrees and began to fix computers for a living. However, for fun, his comedy imitation hobby blossomed into a full comedy routine, which he performed at comedy clubs.
I started out in Dallas at a place called the Comedy Corner. And the way I got there, Tuesday night was an open mic night. Anyone could go up. And at the time, I had a job at an electronics company. And I'd gotten out of show business, out of radio, and missed the audience. And so I went down on this Tuesday night and signed up to go up. And I wrote a little 5-minute comedy routine, and I got a pretty good response.
Our house comic in the Comedy Corner was a guy named Bill Engvall, who's gone on to fame with the Blue Collar Tour.
Yeah, man.
And he was the one that said, "Hey, you did really well. Why don't you come back week after week?" So I started coming back and just kind of honing the craft, and over the next few months got a little bit better and stuff. And then I started to travel around little cities out throughout Dallas. I went down to Houston, and Houston had some of the best comics ever from there. I knew came out of the same group as like Sam Kinison and Bill Hicks and Ron White and those kind of guys. And so you just learn from doing stand-up, first of all, how to appeal to an audience, how to perform, what an audience will like.
At this point, Bill was still doing electronics work from midnight to 8 a.m. so he could do commercials and act during the day. He had signed with an agent and was also traveling as a stand-up comic. Now why can't I find an agent and travel as a stand-up taxidermist? Eventually, his agent suggested Bill go to Hollywood and give himself a couple of years to see if he could get a job doing voices for animation. In 1986, his wife wrote to a number of agents and set up appointments for a visit to Hollywood. Out of 4 agents who showed interest, Bill chose Commercials Incorporated and began producing voice work for, you guessed it, commercials. 4 months later, his agent asked him a very simple, life-changing question. Cash or card?
They said, do you do any of the Disney characters? Because at the time, Michael Eisner had just taken over the company, and they had, 4 or 5 Mickeys, 4 or 5 Goofies, 4 or 5 Donalds, and someone down at the park or in Florida or on a record album, but they all sounded somewhat different voice prints, and they wanted, Roy Disney and Michael Eisner wanted consistency. So you always heard the same voice. So they had a big audition for this, and I said, well, I can't do I can kind of do a Mickey, I guess. And everyone can kind of get in that falsetto and, gosh, oh boy, wow. And so I thought I'd try out for that. And Donald I can't do except the, that's about all I can do.
Right.
And not articulating with that voice is impossible.
Yeah.
But gosh, Goofy was, that was kind of natural, I guess. Of course, I was familiar with him for all of those years of watching The Wonderful World of Color and Disney on television. But the actual audition was a very short process. They gave me a cassette with some of the lines from the classic cartoons, Boat Builders, Lonesome Ghosts, the 1930s Goofy, which is quintessentially classic Goofy.
That's when he became Goofy.
Exactly. And so I only had one weekend to study those lines, and I went in on a Monday to my agents and just laid them down, getting as close as I could to Pinto Colvig's rendition of Goofy. And we sent it off. It wasn't like, and you kind of do auditions and you forget about them because there's so much competition in Hollywood. You never know if you're going to get a call back or a job. And it was about a month and a half later when they said, hey, they would like to use you as the voice, at least on this one, project. Yeah, it was called Disney's Doggone Valentine. And it was like they did a kind of a mashup of songs, popular songs with old Disney cartoons, like DTV was MTV, kind of like that.
Oh, okay.
And so they had, and I remember the line, actually and it was to ADR, which is, if you don't know, that's like replacing dialogue on an existing piece of footage. It was from an old cartoon. I think I said something like, gosh, I put my foot on the gas and I'm out of here quick. And that's all I had to say. But that was terrifying because I'd never done this before.
What was it that you think clinched the job for you?
The laugh. The laugh. And gorsh, Gorsh. You got those two. That's a lot of it.
And about a month and a half later, they called me back, and I did another one. And the second one was great because the first time I worked with a celebrity.
Oh.
And it was Gary Owens, remember?
Oh, nice.
From Laughing, who was so nice.
Yeah.
And we got to share a microphone, and I remember it so well because I said, Gary Owens from Laughing. This is like, oh, wow, And he was very nice. Hello, Bill, how are you? And so we were doing an opening to a show, and they had the old NBC Peacock open up,
Yeah.
And he said, and he had his hand up there, the following program is brought to you in living color. And I said, and stereo on NBC. And that was the biggest thrill I'd ever had. I worked with this. And we had one microphone. We didn't even have separate microphones.
Yeah.
So I was just in heaven
Oh my
with
God.
that.
I think the innocence and the optimism are the two qualities that Goofy has, because he's ever an optimist. He'll fall off of a mountain, he'll get right back up and do it again, not think anything about it. And his genuine good-heartedness. He's genuinely a nice guy. And I think most people can relate to those qualities. And that's a mistake with a lot of people doing Goofy's voice. They just make him sound like a hick or dumb, and I never look at him that way. I look at him as simple, yet honest, and a good soul, and that's what comes through first.
Now, that Goofy yell that we all know and love is such a unique sound. Do you know how it came about?
Well, actually, it's from The Art of Skiing, and I think that was done in 1947, and the actual yell was done by a yodeler that they had to do some yodeling in that cartoon. His name was Hans Schroll. Hans Schroll, I think.
It is so named because of its peculiar sound. Shush!
The Goofy yell.
And you're called upon to do that with some regularity.
Quite often.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't amazing enough to get one iconic character, shortly after landing Goofy, he was asked about another member of the Sensational Six.
They were looking for Pluto. It was very shortly, like within a month. They needed a Pluto, and they said, "Can you do a dog?" And whoa, I could practice, and I could bark.
Good, Bill.
And so I studied. Actually, and Pinto Colvig, who did the voice of Goofy, had done Pluto on several occasions, along with some other people, and they liked my bark and growls and all the other things. And
what was the growl like? What's the growl like?
A lot of whimpers and a lot of things that I have to do. So emote. Actually, doing Goofy, doing Pluto is tougher than doing Goofy, because Goofy you have all the words to enunciate and to get the thing across. But you have to get across the emotion with Pluto with just barking. And if you have to loop an old cartoon, it's like 3 yips, a growl, a sniff, and then a big bark. Okay, and then it's like,
what is my intention?
And then I have to do that, and the engineer's like going like this with the pods because some's loud and some's quiet. And
After performing Goofy in a couple DTV cartoons, he reprised the character in Roger Rabbit and a number of compilation shorts such as Goofy's Field Trips, Goofy for Health, and Goofy Over Dental Health. In 1991, Bill brought Goofy to theaters in Prince and the Pauper, which was shown at the beginning of The Rescuers Down Under. And yes, we will get to Rescuers Down Under eventually.
Now where can he be? Who's that? Oh, there he is. Oh, thank you, sire. Gosh, Mick's flipped his wig.
In 1992, it was time for Goofy to join Disney Afternoon in a little-known series called Is It Just Me, or did Disney Afternoon have the best theme songs? Anyway, Goofy appears as a single father who moves back to his hometown of Spoonerville with his son Max. The series produced 76 episodes and, of course, 2 movies.
It was originally supposed to be a Goof Troop movie. Goof Troop was my first series. They did a DuckTales movie based on the series. Yeah. They wanted to do this, but as the script developed, they thought, well, maybe it'd be better as a buddy-buddy picture. Yeah. So they rewrote it as a Goofy taking his son on a trip. And that was interesting because with the big budget, when we did Goof Troop, I would get a 42-page script, and in those days we did it ensemble. We were all in the studio doing it together. And we'd do it in like 3 hours, the whole show. This movie, I worked on it, probably over about a 2-year period from 93 till it came out in 95, and probably about 30 to 40 different days of recording where they'd write us, think, no, that didn't work, let's try something else. And they would have the money and the time to look for the best of everything and to put it together, and it came out and it was great, and it's gotten more popular as time's gone on. And next year's its 25th anniversary, and they're planning something, I don't know what.
Isn't that amazing?
Quite often they'll say, what's my favorite line from a Goofy movie, and it's usually when Goofy's asleep and how many cups of sugar does it take? How many cups of sugar does it take to get to the moon? And Max, 3.5. Then he goes back. I had to do that about 20-some times to get it right.
How many cups of sugar does it take to get to the moon?
3.5.
This cult classic movie shows Bill at his best. The heart he puts into his performance shows his incredible acting ability. And the songs prove that he's not all talk. He can sing, too.
Hard times we've had a few.
Hold on. Can we play the song?
If we listen to each other,
That's the stuff. Outside of Disney, Bill was a field reporter in RoboCop. And he has played numerous Warner Brothers characters, most notably in Space Jam, another cult classic.
Yeah, for Warner Brothers. I've done a lot of Mel Blanc's voices over the years. I've done Bugs and Daffy and Foghorn and Sylvester and Yosemite Sam over the years, and not steadily, just kind of hit or miss here. I did Bugs Bunny last week with Seth Green on Robot Chicken, but Foghorn's my favorite Warner Brothers character.
Really?
Oh, the big chicken. He's very loud and boisterous. Likes to hear his own voice.
You know.
Bill also has an impressive resume with background characters for movies, through what he calls a loop group, no relation to Goof Troop.
I quite often voice in a loop group, which is a group of actors that add ancillary characters, little bits of business in a nearly completed movie. Going back to Beauty and the Beast and Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, Pocahontas, Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Bugs Life, Monsters Inc., Monsters University. Most recently in, not for Disney, but the Minions. I'm doing some background voices in that. But you get to do strange characters. In Toy Story, I'm like the Mission Control when they're at the Pizza Planet.
T-minus 29, 28, 27.
Little incidental voices that aren't any of the main characters. In Beauty and the Beast, when Gaston is singing in the bar about decorating with antlers and stuff, he throws 3 eggs up in the air, and look, that's me. I'm eggs.
Your eggs.
And no one knows that.
We do now.
That's right.
We know, and we're going to run into each other in public. Like someone's going to say, hey, I watched that video. No,
Eggs is on his resume.
Throughout the years, Bill has performed Goofy in an impressive amount of projects. Highlights include Mickey Mouse Works, Kingdom Hearts, House of Mouse, The Three Musketeers, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, Roadster Racers, Mixed Up Adventures, and Mickey's Funhouse.
Since 1986, I've done probably close to 3,000 different projects for Disney.
3,000?
3,000, about 20-some albums. I've done talking watches, talking lamps, talking telephones, talking jalopy cars, and cartoons, movies, educational shows, industrials, commercials, about every venue that there is, Goofy is performed in. I get quite often asked to speak to children in hospital through like Make-A-Wish Foundation and Famous Phone Friends. And that is where the magic comes alive, because on the phone, they only hear my voice, and to them it is so real. And we get so many letters coming back later on how excited these children are to get a chance to talk to Goofy. So when I'm on the phone with the kids is when it really comes alive.
Outside of Goofy, he played Doc in the 7D.
I admit this bridge is a little overkill for this creek. A plank really is perfect here.
And Hop Pop in Amphibia.
I think we need to get Hop Pop to a shower.
Oh, yes, please. My skin is burning.
He's also had the opportunity to stretch his humor a bit in the 2013 Mickey Mouse TV series and The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse in 2020.
Potato, land! Potato, land!
Well, of course, a lot of the stuff we do at Disney is for like 5 and under, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, that kind of thing. And I like edgier stuff. I was a stand-up comic for it. So definitely, Robot Chicken has, Amphibia has a lot of great lines that Hop Pop does. The new Mickey Mouse shorts is kind of a different style of Goofy than it is on what I call the traditional Goofy. And we were able to do things in those series that we'd never been able to do before. Goofy was a zombie in one thing, and I found out. I love Halloween, so I figured, oh, good, Goofy's going to be a zombie, and that was so cool. And those scripts are wonderfully funny, and I love doing those too, because it's much more adult and a little whacked, and so am I.
Do they give you different direction, like compared to like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, for example? Like these are different kind of Goofy.
Yeah, because it's a little touch more country, Rube. Mm-hmm. He's a little bit, on the more, rough around the edges kind of side than he is in Racers or one of the other shows. And but they give me, pretty much freedom. I get to stretch the boundaries of the character more on that. Mm-hmm. And it's great fun to do. Sometimes we did a Halloween special where Goofy got to be Dr. Goofenstein, so I kind of got to do a Boris Karloff sort of thing. I say, come, Igor, it lives! And I got to mix characters and have fun with it.
That's cool.
2009 saw him get a Disney Legend Award in the company of some pretty notable people.
September of 2009.
That's awesome.
And that is an award. That's kind of like their Oscar for whoever they feel, did something good for the Disney company. And ours was the first one in front of in the public of the D23 convention. And that was an amazing event, because I got mine along with Tony and Selma, who does the voice of Donald Duck. And Robin Williams.
Wow.
And Betty White and several other people.
And although his voice has been heard all over the Disney parks, 2020 saw Goofy in a new ride.
And seeing my character kind of be the conductor, and I got to say all the basic spiel, like, keep your arms and legs inside the car at all times.
Always remain seated, and be sure to keep a watchful eye on your little ones. Okie dokie, thanks.
We used some of the old microphones to get that 1930s sound.
Yeah, I heard they used the original whistle from Steamboat Willie for the whistle as well.
All of the sound effects in that ride are what are called practical effects. In other words, a fire might be cellophane that you crinkle up. It's something, none of them are digital. It's all physical things, where a clanking sound is probably real gears that they have a handle on. Yeah. Or the whistle is, as I understand it, the original whistle from Steamboat Willie.
Can I hear your voice at the park right now? Is it in Toontown?
Oh, sure, yeah. I'm in Toontown and Mickey's house and a mailbox there. Mickey's Sky School, the ride, and California Adventure. Of course, you can hear and any stage play or in front of the castle and Walt Disney World. Yeah, I'm all over the place.
Bill Farmer is the cream of the crop when it comes to voice actors with extreme talent. However, with his most well-known and most performed character being as famous as Goofy, the rest of his immense talent sometimes goes unnoticed. Just taking a look into his long list of accomplishments puts to rest any doubt. Bill Farmer is an incredibly versatile and talented voice artist. That truly makes us say,
everybody mumble! Boom, 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 boom.
Come on, there's no time for this. The neighbors see us, huh?
Thank you to these people for supporting us on Patreon and Ko-fi. And if you want to make sure this channel sticks around, you can check out our Ko-fi link in the description. Every bit helps. Thank you for watching this episode of Discographies. Click the thumbs up button below if you liked it. And if you want to be notified when the next episode comes out, consider subscribing and hitting the bell. Comment below with characters you would like to see us cover. Further reading and references are linked below. We hope to see you in another Discography.
I was putting up Christmas lights one year, and I think, holy little boom, 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 probably doing the Goofy voice. I was in sweatpants. I stepped down off the ladder, stepped backward. My foot hit the riser on our lawn sprinkler system. I was falling backwards into a rose bush. Now that's silly enough, but not goofy enough. So the first rose bush grabbed and pulled down my pants. I fell bare-butted into the second rose bush.